Hello, my name is Mateusz Bartel and I am a Grandmaster from Poland. For most of you, I can be a no-name, but I hope it will change very soon. For quite some time now, I've been a member of Chess24 family. I've been fully responsible for Polish channel, but now I am also switching to some activities in English. And I hope we will become friends in the coming days or months. You will surely hear more of me and I hope you will enjoy. Starting with this video, I will present dramatic games of chess. I will try to find recent games and the games where stake, tension were high. Also, I will try to look for games with evaluation constantly changing when advantage comes from one hand to another, when one player is better than he is worse, when the final winner is quite surprising. The game of today will be the game from last Kwika Reykjavik Open between two Indian prodigies. White player was Gukesh, black player was Praggnanandhaa. You are surely quite familiar with those names because they are quite well famous. Gukesh is born in 2006, Praggnanandhaa is born in 2005. The future is in their hands and they are already very strong players. I am happy that both of those players participated in Julius Baer Challengers chess tour. They both were very successful there. Gukesh won a Gelfand challenge while Praggnanandhaa won the overall final tournament, and you are actually lucky since you can watch the videos from their training sessions in Challenge Yourself website. You can follow those instructive materials. Before the final round, Praggnanandhaa was the tournament leader with 6.5 out of 8. Two other players had the same number of points while Gukesh had only 6 out of 8. And in order to catch the leader, he badly needed to win, and well, he was very close to do that. The game started with d4 and we quickly got a Nimzo. After bishop b4, Gukesh decided to play e3, castle, bishop d3. Everything is very normal and popular up to now. And here white went for, well, maybe not a questionable move, but because cd is quite normal, although maybe it can be called a premature. Here you have other options like knight f3 or bishop d2, but taking and playing a3 is already kind of a novelty. So it surely had to be a surprise for a black player, and Pragg decided to play bishop d6. It's actually, it seems like the idea, although I don't really get the point, to force bishop to go to d6, because quite often black is playing bishop e8 and later putting the bishop on f8. So maybe that was the plan, to force black bishop to go to d6, but the position of the bishop on d6 is not bad, so I don't really get the point. White went for bishop for queen c2, which is quite okay. And now black had a choice. I wouldn't play the same what Pragg did in this position. I'd rather go for c6, building a strong pawn chain and just developing. I think quite natural consequence of this c6 move would be knight g2, something like rook e8, castle, knight to d7. Then I would go with black to knight f8, and I would be quite happy with that position, although it can be tougher than I think. So Pragg decided to play b6, which is quite normal in those positions. And now there is a question of, to white, what you really wanted by playing queen c2, because, well, it seems like knight to b5 might have been a plan, but it's not really making a thing. since after c5, knight d6, queen d6, black is doing extremely fine here. We can see that black is already better developed, with 2 pieces playing, with a castle already done, and white is not really happy in that position, because pair of bishops is not really great, especially the bishop from c1 may be vulnerable very soon, and it's probably a very good position for black. Black is about to play bishop a6 and trade the bishops, or sometimes c4 can be an option. I think it would be just a wrong position for white. So Gukesh didn't play knight b5, he went for b4, which is a very interesting move. It is against c7 c5 move, and it looks very challenging. And again, the next decision of Praggnanandhaa wouldn't be my choice. I would probably go for c6 again. Somehow I like this move here. The first choice would be, of course, a5 to challenge the b4 move, but after b5 it's not so clear what white can do, what black can do, because we don't really want to play with such a weak square, and when we would move the pawn to c6 or to c5, black would be in troubles, because after taking, the b5 square would be weak. So that it is quite interesting to prepare that action by playing c6, and after knight f3, a5, b5, c5. Now I think it would be pretty normal for black, and this position would be, I think, quite playable, although someone may say that white is also doing quite okay. Pragg went for c5, which is quite okay, but it creates a position with Isolani on d5, so massive changes on c5, and now we have this structure when pawn on d5 is an Isolani. And as we will see, it's not so simple to play this position with black. It looks quite okay, and both sides developed the same number of pieces. Both sides should be doing quite okay, but quickly it goes very wrong for black, because as we see, it's not so simple to develop the queen side for black. White played knight f3, and this is probably one of the most natural choices in that position, although there were some other options too. Personally, I would be strongly considering knight g2, but there is a problem with this move, that knight from g2 from e2 is not controlling e5 square as knight from f3 does, so that black would quickly go for knight d7, castle, and knight e5, and probably black is just doing very well. And the other moves, well, there were not so many options, because white must be careful. d4 may be coming, and opening the position with king on the center may be very dangerous. So that was knight f3, which Gukesh took here. And now it's very surprising moment, at least for me, that very natural move played by Praggnanandhaa led to massive problems for him. He went for rook e8. You can say it's very natural. We are putting the rook on a e-file, it is preparing d4, we are developing the rook, which was not playing, but according to engines, and not only to engines, this is a positional mistake. It was very important to act very quickly, because if white can control d4 square, if it can, well, there is also always a tactical issue with a bishop, very soon this position can be quite problematic for black because of this Isolani. So we have to solve our problems quickly with black, and there is just no time to play rook e8. The best move here was bishop g4, challenging the knight on f3, and after castle take, knight d7, protecting the c5 bishop, and after rook d1 we play rook c8, putting the rook on the same file that white queen and we are tactically not allowing white to develop as quick as they want. There is a huge difference with move rook e8, which is just well, pointless. It's just a waste of time, because the game saw rook e8, castle, bishop g4, rook d1, bishop takes, and in the very same position now we cannot go knight d7. We don't have time, because after this move now white is having very nice tactical shot, knight d5, bishop h7, later collecting the knight on d5, and black's position is collapsing, so that there is just no time for it. And we see that rook on e8 is actually doing nothing. It was in a way just an empty move. It looked okay. We put a rook on a e-file, which can be active one day there, but it was necessary to calculate precisely if the rook is needed at this square at this moment. And starting from this place, or to be more precise, from this place, white is being much better in a situation where Gukesh wanted to win and needed to win to fight for the first place. He got a fantastic position. So bishop g4, rook d1, take, bishop d6 to well, move bishop from the position where it was hanging. White played bishop b2. It was also possible to go for knight d5 with the same trick as we have already mentioned. Knight d5, bishop h7, king somewhere. King can go to h8, and now we are not taking, but we are playing bishop e4, using the fact that there is a pin, that rook on a8 is not protected, and after knight b6 you had to evaluate this position, which is probably not so simple, although white with rook and 2 pawns for those two not very active knights is doing quite okay. But Gukesh decided to play very natural move, bishop b2. White is more and more ready to take the advantage from the isolani, from the pair of bishops, because after this action of black, black is not having pair of bishops, and those are the reasons why white is better here, because of this weak pawn and because of having pair of bishops. Bishop b2, bishop e5, and now bishop b5, again taking the advantage from the pair of bishops. And now we see that this rook on e8 was a really huge mistake. It's not only not very active on e8, but it is also giving a chances for white, opportunities to attack the rook and improve the white's position. Bishop e5 was quite okay, because there was not so much to do, since those ideas are still there to take the pawn, and it's very hard to suggest a good move for black. He played bishop e5, bishop b5, knight d7, knight take d5, bishop takes b2. There was an option to attack the queen, but it changes nothing. Queen goes to e2, and position is actually very similar. So it was bishop b2, queen b2, rook e5, looking for some complications. Bishop takes d7. It was also possible, and I would probably consider it playing with white, to play very elegant move of bishop c6 to protect the knight on d5, and taking maybe a bit more than Gukesh took in the game, because after bishop c6 we may have play f4 at one day, for example rook c8 attacking the bishop. Now we use the fact that knight is being protected, so we go f4, and we ask the rook where it goes. Probably it is giving quite a bit more, but okay, what Gukesh did was very okay, because he forced rook d5, knight d5, bishop h3. And after 22 moves in a very important game, white is being pawn up. White was, if I am not mistaken, much ahead on the clock, which was actually very important factor in that position. I am not exactly sure how it was exactly what was the difference on the clock at that moment, but surely white was doing very okay. Well, it's hard to imagine that it was black who won the game here. Well, you can say how it did happen, but we'll see step by step. I think it's very important to be very successful in winning such positions. As we see, even grandmasters find it difficult. Knight went to b6. There was some idea of rook d1, so knight has to find a place. It's also one of black's problems in this position, that there is no good place for a knight. It would be very happy to be protected by a pawn somewhere, let's say missing pawn on e6, but there is no such a place for a knight, and it is just looking for some nice spot, but it's very hard to find one. Knight b6, queen e5. This is an okay move. There is nothing wrong with it, but again, it would probably not be my choice. I would rather look for a move to like rook c1 to put a rook on a open file, and later look for some solutions. I would probably also consider f4, because it looks very natural to put all the pawns on dark squares when we have the light square bishop. Later we can consider bishop g2, or well, bishop is actually doing a great job on h3, controlling important c8 square, but simply pawns placed like that looks much more natural. g5 is controlled, e5 is controlled, so f4 was very okay. But okay, there is nothing wrong with queen e5. Queen is very active here, and we can build on having such an active queen soon. Queen d2, and now well, all problems begins, because for the next move, which seems to be pretty normal, Gukesh spent 17 minutes. If you would ask me why he didn't win the game, I would say maybe he started to lose the game at this very moment, when in a very maybe not simple, but very obvious position with pawn up for white. White spent 17 minutes on their next decision, when it's clear that this is not a crucial moment. It is clear that white can do almost whatever they want, just improving the position, and later at some moment look for some calculations. But you can be sure that now there is no point in calculating. There is well, it's more important to do some moves which are improving the position, and later think. He went for f4, which is very okay, but this is the move you can do within 1 minute, and not spending 17 minutes, which were badly needed later. f4, queen e2. As we see, black is not really black doesn't know what to do, because, well, the only chance for black is just to jump around and look for a chance, so that those moves by black are pretty random. Rook c1, finally all those moves are done, and queen d3, and again black is just looking for a chance, so those moves are pretty random. Queen d3, attacking the pawn, and now it's a very interesting moment, because again, Gukesh spent quite some time, not too much, but still. He went for queen c3. I would rather look for something more aggressive. Maybe I would be wrong, but it feels that those two pieces are slightly out of play. So it would be very interesting and promising to launch some attack on the other side of the board, so that I would probably consider rook c7 with the idea of queen e3, bishop e6, and we are using the fact that we are having the rook on 7th rank. You cannot take because you are being mated, and after bishop e6 the only move is rook f8, or one of the only moves. And this is kind of a Zugzwang. Black cannot really move. And I checked some line like that we are just improving the position slowly by white. And when there will be an opportunity, we can use it. Here even bishop a2 is okay, because now with bishop not on e-file, we are threatening rook takes f7. So after this, we have a very nice combination with a typical mate on f8. So in this position, it's hard to believe that black can be okay. Knight is just out of play, it's just cut off, and white can do whatever they want, and one moment something should happen. So here, okay, computer is even suggesting rook a move like a4 to make knight even worse, because comp sees some more coordination in this position. It says that the only move for black not to lose immediately is queen a6, which is already very tough. And the variations are not that important later. It's just this moment I would like you to put attention that here white could probably look for something more aggressive, but no, he decides to not to use the momentum when his pieces are very active, and there was a chance to launch the direct attack. He went for queen c3, rook d8, queen c7, h6, very smart move, because now Pragg sees that his chances are close to zero. He's just preparing some place for his king, not to have the back rank mate issue, and he's just looking for a chance. There is nothing more he might have done. And again, now it's very interesting moment, because in this position, which is very good for white, it's still winning. Gukesh spent another 5 minutes on calculating the pawn capture, and he did it, which is okay. But now we see something new in the position. We see that queen is far away from a white king. We see that white forces are slightly maybe not misplayed, but there is no coordination. We see that there is an option of launching the knight somewhere closer to the king, or something like here, or I don't know. There are some options, and the situation slightly changes. Pragg went for knight d5, and look, suddenly we have a first threat. Bishop is unprotected. There is an idea of taking on f4, and later queen can capture the bishop. So there are first moments when white should be careful. He went bishop f1, he got a check, bishop g2, and knight c3. It's still nothing huge, but situation changes again. Few moves ago black was barely moving, and now all black pieces are very active. Now all black pieces are creating maybe not threats, because engines are laughing. What are you talking about? 2 pawns up for white position is completely winning, but now we have a threat of check. Now we cannot take because of mate in 1 actually. And now we have to be careful. This is what we don't want to meet when we are having such a position. Few moves ago, as I told, there was no counterplay for black. Now there are 2 pawns for white, but there is a certain counterplay for black, and you can blunder, you can make an incorrect decision, and it really happened very soon. White went for rook f1, queen d3, another very smart move. It is not really clear what he wanted, or well, maybe it is, but there is no direct decisive threat or something like that. It is just Pragg was just looking for some coordination between his forces, and he just realized that putting rook on g6 would be a very nice idea, because rook from d6 is also controlling a6 square, so suddenly his pieces are better and better. It's another question if it may be enough to save the day, but he still improves the position. Now Gukesh being under pressure, because suddenly he really his task is no longer easy. He played the best move according to the engine, a4. It's quite clear that the pawn is important here. If we advance it as far as possible, it should decide the game. So it was, in my opinion, not the simplest decision, because I would badly try to come back with a queen to the defense, but it's not so simple, because if we move the queen somewhere here, we got a check, we lose a pawn, and I'm sorry, it's no longer easy to win it, if it is possible at all. So it was a4, rook d6, as we already discussed. The rook is joining the attack. a5, rook g6, there is not very pleasant pin, and king h1, and somewhere here we already see that there can be some issues. It's not so far away from creating a mate net. We will soon see which, but the fact that rook is cutting the king on the g file potentially prepares queen takes f1, and after bishop f1, knight somehow goes to f2. We will see that it will maybe not really play a role, but there is something like that in the air. After king h1, Pragg played king h7, another brilliant move, because it is not changing the evaluation. If you would enter the engine, it would say white is completely winning after accepting the pawn, but from practical point of view, it's a brilliant decision. King was exposed to checks, now it is not. Now we have an idea of knight e4. Of course, knight e4 here was losing immediately to check and capture, so that he is playing king h7 to prepare knight e4, and suggesting that taking is not possible. It was possible, but after knight e4 you have to see the winning move, and it is not f5, because as we already told, take and mate, very nice solution. But here the only move for white is playing h3, and this is probably something what Gukesh didn't see, being short on time, because already at this moment he was in a time trouble. He had just minutes. It's a huge question where he really lost this time, but as I already pointed out, somewhere at the beginning of the process of conversion of his advantage, he spent way too much time looking for some more decisive actions when it was not needed, like on f3, f4 he spent 17 minutes. And here after h3, white is winning, because there is no mate. In this line we have h2 square for a king, so black still can try queen e2, attacking the f2 pawn. You cannot take the knight because rook would be hanging. Now f5, rook f6, queen d5, knight f2, king g1, and it is winning. But you see how tough it is. If we would have such a game during a blitz, you would say, okay, but it's just a completely unclear position. So that was the feeling of Gukesh. Why should I go for it? Why should I allow the opponent to jump like that? And while computer is saying it's pretty fine, sorry, everyone here would be totally panicked seeing such a line, because even at the end it requires some further calculation to realize that knight is actually lost here. It's limited perfectly by a bishop, and somehow black is just completely done. After king h7, white didn't take the pawn. He went for queen d4, which is still okay, but it was the beginning of an end. Black played queen f5, very nice move, very surprising move, and I am sure that Gukesh well, didn't see this, or he thought his response is good enough. The trick is that after queen takes c3, we can simply take the rook, the bishop, and after takes, we just give the perpetual check. So taking on c3 is impossible, and the alternatives, there are alternatives, but it is not so easy to find the best move. Although by the method, using the method of elimination, or realizing what the threat of opponent is, h3 was not the move which is impossible to find. We are just taking g4 under control. We are not allowing to take. Now it's just giving nothing. There is no g4 square for a queen. We never can give a perpetual. So after h3, the difficulty of h3 move is that we are giving the pawn, because this is actually a double attack. We are attacking the pawn and we are creating a rook g2 threat. So after h3, queen takes a5, and now it was what should have Gukesh find, that knight is actually very badly placed. It is not attacking the king, and when it is not attacking the king, it's actually quite misplayed. Now queen d2, very nice move, creating a pin, preparing some rook c1, queen a3 to avoid the pin, and now we can even go for queen c2, creating another pin. One by one we are taking the advantage of lack of coordination in black's forces, and let's say king g8, rook c1, and now we are just winning the material, because when the rook moves, we are just giving a check. And for example, here we can win a queen just like that. So after h3, position is basically completely winning, but it's very, very difficult, being short on time, to realize that actually this knight is kind of lost. And when the knight, well, maybe it's not lost, but it has to be moved, and when it is moved, the diagonal is creating huge problems for black. But now the real drama begins, because Gukesh went for queen e5. He received a very unpleasant blow of queen g4, and he thought, well, okay, I am playing rook g1 and I am winning. There is no more threats. Knight is hanging. There is an idea of playing, for example, f5, of playing h3. For example, after this, we probably can simply play h3 and everything is okay. Queen is attacked. After this, we can probably go for rook f1 and job is done. But the problem is that after rook g1, we have just one bad spot in our position, which is f2, and after knight d1, position is just over. All of a sudden, the knight, which was out of play, it appears as a crucial piece. It is attacking the only unprotected square in our position, the only unprotected spot in our position, and the game is over. The game is done. Pawn is attacking the f2 pawn. Knight is attacking f2 pawn with a deadly mate threat, and we have no moves, so here Gukesh has resigned. You can say, what is in this game so dramatic, just a huge blunder at one moment, but I wouldn't say so. When checking this game, I've seen it like white was playing very, very well. White obtained significant advantage. White got a pawn up in a very important game, and starting from this moment, when his position was clearly better, well, objectively close to winning, he started to spend time. He was not sure how to proceed, and simple position suddenly became very complicated because of two things. First of all, he spent too much time, in many decisions, and later he did something what is always dangerous. He took the second pawn, but what is more important, he lost the coordination. The situation has changed. He rightly actually decided that this material advantage will be decisive, but the difficulties appeared on the board because black received a counterplay, and this is something what we should always avoid when we are in a winning position, to limit opponent's counterplay, and this is what Gukesh didn't succeed, and that's why he painfully lost this game. And this is it. I hope you liked the video. Leave please the thumbs up, leave some feedback. I will try to read it all, and if you suggest some changes, I will surely adapt them. What is important, don't forget to subscribe our channel. Don't forget to become a premium member of Chess24 to attend my masterclasses, which will be happening very soon. So do your move, and we will see each other next time. Thanks.